I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things certified financial planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And today I have a very special guest who's joining me. And that is Amyr Rocha Lima from Holland, Hanna and Wills. Welcome, Amyr.
Hello, Jackie. Thank you for having me.
Now, the reason why I wanted to talk to you today, young man, is that you know a thing or two about being a certified financial planner. And you took your CFP, is it, because it must be about 18, no, it must be two years ago, something like that now?
Yeah, something like that. I got the pass mark at the beginning of 2019. So the process basically happened throughout 2018. Yeah.
Excellent. Right. So on today's podcast, we're going to be talking all things certified financial planner related. And I'd just like to start off by finding out from you, what was your journey to CFP? How did you find out about the CFP and think to yourself, actually, this is something that I want to be part of and I want to do as an assessment?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jackie. So I have been aware of the CFP for a pretty long time. So I think I look back at my Twitter feed, believe it or not, using that sort of as a bit of a timestamp, almost like a public diary. And I saw some tweets that I put out in 2013 asking folks about the CFP versus chartered. As at that point, I had already completed my certificate in financial planning, as it was the diploma in financial planning. And I was thinking, what next? And I remember there were quite a few different CFPs who were very kindly answered me and pointed me towards what the CFP was, what the value they thought in having CFP and chartered was. So I was aware of it. But at the time, history will tell me that I took the chartered route. And I continued progressing until I got to chartered financial planner. And at that point, I thought, okay, what next? So the what next, I'll cut that long story short, but the what next was that I applied to the Cass Business School through City University of London, and I went to do a master's in wealth management. Mm-hmm. And after having really felt that I had challenged myself technically in becoming this professional that I fancy becoming, and I'm still striving to become, I then wanted to shift gears to something completely different. And I went into the Kinder Institute to do their registered life planner training. Yeah. So between getting chartered in 2015, the end of 2015, I went to my graduation ceremony then, and then doing my master's degree and then getting the RLP, the registered life planner certification with Kinder. It's after that I thought, okay, what next? And by then I had already some friends that were CFPs within the community. And I also had just moved into Holland, Hanna and Wills, where my two business partners, who are also financial planners, are both chartered in CFP. And it was at that point, that first day sitting at my desk, I thought, there is no way that I'm going to be a partner in this business with two guys who have more certifications than me. Just is not going to happen. I want us to be at a same level. Yeah. And that's what really prompted me to really say, okay, where do I sign up? Let's do this.
So tell us a little bit about how you understood the differences between, obviously back then you were chartered, and how you understood the differences between chartered and CFP, because, I think having a master's in wealth management and being chartered, probably could have been enough perhaps. But what was it particularly about the CFP that you thought, I need to kind of get on and do it now?
Yeah, well, the reality is, Jackie, that even after my master's degree, or maybe especially so, because a master's in science degree, especially, it's very research based, it's very technical based. It's not thinking about necessarily you doing wealth management with client families. It's more about the actually intricacies of what wealth management is and the products and the structures that make this field a field worth researching. So I felt at the end of that process that when I looked myself in the mirror, I still didn't feel I was doing financial planning as I read about it when I read blogs and articles from the financial planners that I was looking up to, from the States, from Australia, and even from here, from the UK. They were describing the thing they did for a living. And I was looking at what I was doing for a living. I was thinking, well, there's some missing components here. And then interestingly, when I went through the Kinder Institute registered life planner qualification and training, I also met CFPs there. And George Kinder himself is a CFP. So, yes, there's a lot of synergy between those two ways of thinking there. And again, I was then having the opportunity to spend a week with these guys. Then the mentorship, I spent 6 months doing this mentorship with these folks and really seeing that what they did for a living was the thing I wanted to do, but the thing that I wasn't yet capable of doing. I didn't know how to, I didn't have the tools. And, I use that analogy about sitting at the first day at the office at my new firm at Holland, Hahn & Wills and thinking, right, I want to level up and be at the same qualification level as my business partners. But also I was seeing the planning they were doing. And granted, I could sit next to them and do the planning that they were doing with them. But really, I wanted the same aha moment that they were telling me they had, and they all linked it back to doing the CFP. So the reason why I chose it was because I thought it was the thing that was going to give me the tools to do the job that I actually wanted to do. And I was thankfully absolutely right about the fact that, like everybody else says, the CFP was also my aha moment in this profession. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's one of perhaps the most common things that I hear from the certified financial planners actually around the world, is that they thought they were doing financial planning. They went through the CFP and then they get that aha, that light bulb moment where actually everything changes for them. And actually it changes not only for them, but for the business they're in and for the clients for the long term.
Absolutely. And Jackie, I mentioned there now some sort of technical qualifications in the chartered route and even a master's degree if people fancy that, but I'm not pitching one against the other. Far from me to do that. I think there's no value in pitching chartered versus CFP. I think it's a nonsense conversation, really.
No.
I think what I felt, this is my experience, and from speaking with people in the financial planning community in the UK, they felt the same, is that the chartered route gave me the technical chops and gave me the confidence to know that I knew what I was talking about, which is very, very, very important. It really builds your confidence up as a financial planner. And what the CFP gave me that I personally didn't get from the chartered route was the practical skills of employing those technical chops to build a plan. That was actually the thing that happens before I talk about or implement any of those technicalities with products or investments. So it created this additional layer in my professional life, which I personally just didn't feel I had gained from the chartered route, although all of those components that I gained from the chartered route became enhanced because of this planning framework that I now had.
And I think for me, I always used to talk about this, it's the application of the knowledge that you already have to complete a kind of giant jigsaw puzzle for the clients, where you're trying to, if you took each bit in isolation, you could probably do a great job. And actually, the regulator would be happy, the firm would be happy, the client would be happy. But it's that element of the holistic element, isn't it? That giant 3D jigsaw puzzle to get the best all-round fit, so that the client can actually achieve everything they want to achieve when they want to, rather than going, well, we'll leave that for 12 months and then thinking, oh, yucks, you've recommended that they invest all the money in their pension or whatever it might be, and then they don't actually have enough money to get sufficient, protection products or something like that in the general scheme of the overall plan that the client needs.
That's it.
Interesting, isn't it? So tell us a little bit more about the process, the approach that you took when you actually went through the certified financial planner process. So you're building your case study, you're setting your assumptions. Give us a flavor of, how long it took you, where the good bits were, where the perhaps not so good bits were.
Yeah. So I took the approach of thinking, okay, I'm going to actually give this a go myself before talking with anybody. I'm just going to get the case study. This is post doing the actual examination that I needed to do, the technical examination, just to get myself to the point where I was allowed to apply for the case study.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get the case study and just give this a go myself with my own way of thinking, right? So I did that, and I felt less than confident with the result. And I sat down with my two business partners, as I said, who are CFPs, although it had been maybe 10 years since or even more since they had sat their CFP. But nonetheless, they looked at it and they thought, Amyr, this feels to us like you're definitely in the right ballpark. You've got a good framework here for being able to pull some of these levers and mold this plan according to maybe the bits that are weaker, the bits that are stronger, etc. But are you going to submit it? Are you going to submit this case in this particular way you built it? And I just didn't feel confident to submit it because I knew I didn't have all the mental models, all the mental tools that I wanted to have to be able to build the plan to deliver the solutions the way I thought the case study was requiring. So at the time, there was a week-long course that was offered by the CISI. So I popped over to Bristol, stayed there for 5 days or 4.5 days, and effectively they taught you the tools that perhaps you were missing to then go back to the drawing board, and with those tools, rebuild your financial plan for submission. And I must say that process of learning those tools was invaluable, because at that moment, that's when the aha pretty much started. It's when I got back to work after those 4.5 days, and I sat down with my business partners, as I said, who were CFPs themselves, but perhaps it had been a while since they challenged themselves with a case study, so to speak. And I already had one or two bits which I could say, hey, it would be great if we offered this to clients this way. Or I spoke to somebody at that course, and in their firm, they described this bit that way to the client. So that's when the transformation in me already started. And I even felt confident about remolding slowly our own internal financial planning process to offer something and deliver something of even more value to clients.
Yeah. And I think that's really, you need that challenge, don't you, of being able to kind of lock horns with either the tutor or some of the participants in the group. Having that group kind of community support, I think, has been quite an important element to help people through the CFP. And I think one of my favourite subjects, being an old assessor, was looking at the assumptions and how to build assumptions. And I've got the king of assumptions, I think you'll probably guess who that is, coming on next week's podcast as well to talk about all things related to assumptions. But I think some of the elements is kind of bringing together that application of knowledge is really important, actually challenging yourself and thinking, okay, well, am I doing it the best way I could do? Is there a better way? Is there a better fit? Is there a better approach to the client? Even perhaps when you're in a client meeting, doing things in a slightly different order than perhaps you normally would have done in the past.
Exactly. And Jackie, that's when I look back and think about some of those sort of toughest bits of the case study. It boils down to something you mentioned a bit earlier in our conversation, which is this ability to understand that as a whole, the financial plan as a machine, as a holistic machine to deliver the client into the life they want to live, it is very sensitive to some of the things we've been talking about. It's sensitive to the assumptions you make. And it's also sensitive to the force with which you might prioritize goal number one versus goal number two, or even how you pull lever number one versus lever number two. And that's what I found tough. And that's the bit that I don't think I had the mental models to be able to tackle that on my own, because I was used to tackling each individual component financial planning problem that the client had as they brought it up to me.
Yeah.
And this was just how I did it. If somebody had a pension problem, I would tackle the pension problem. And as you said, I think in my heart of hearts, I never did anybody a disservice by doing that. But I also, perhaps right at the beginning of my career, when I didn't have the CFP framework with which to work in, I probably wasn't giving them as good a financial resolution to the life they actually wanted to live as perhaps I do now. Because now we look at it as, okay, I appreciate Mr. or Mrs. Client, you're coming to me with this particular pensions technical problem that is now bothering you. So why don't we take this opportunity to take a step back and have a look at your financial life as it stands at the moment, right? On an as-is basis. If we did nothing differently, where are you going financially with your life? And once we see that, let's sit back and let's just see how that feels, right? And then I'll be able to highlight to you some of the areas where perhaps there are gaps. And also I'll be able to talk to you about, given your context, given the goals, the life you want to live, I'll be able to highlight to you some of the things that you might want to think about doing. And then we can actually pull those levers together, and you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, will understand how sensitive your financial life is, given some of these goals you want to achieve, to the behaviors you're actually employing day to day, month to month, with your income, with your assets, with your investments, et cetera, et cetera. It's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. And what's interesting is behind the scenes, what it sounds like you're saying is actually you're helping educate the client in those bits, the gaps that they might not have appreciated, the ramifications of making what seems to be, perhaps in a certain situation, an obvious decision to make. And you're actually highlighting those elements and saying, well, okay, yes, you can do that. Yes, it might be an obvious thing to do. And yes, we can absolutely do it for you. But let's just press the pause button and think through the longer term ramifications on your other objectives, perhaps gifting to children or to charities, or, those sorts of elements that you can actually have that time of reflection and pause before the wheels go into motion.
That's it. Absolutely. And, it also highlights to the client that as financial planners, we're not magicians. We don't have this magical wand where they come in and suddenly we know something they don't, that we can just pull out of our pocket and say, look, nobody knows about this, but if you buy this fund, you'll be fine. Well, we don't do that. That doesn't exist. And I'm not saying clients expect that, but I'm saying that there is something in that framework that some people expect to happen when they see a financial planner. And what we do is actually take them through a process, and especially using the CFP framework, where we have an honest, an open and adult conversation about what is it that you want out of life, and what is it that we can do given the resources that you have. And if we can get there, great. And if we can't quite get there, here are the things, here are the levers that we can pull where you forego a little bit of this, but you gain a little bit more of that. And you can then build a plan in which you can try to aspire and strive to achieve the best possible life with the resources that you have. And when clients buy into that, it's a different relationship that you have with people. It's a different relationship from a client planner perspective. It's a different relationship of how they talk about you and your firm to their friends and family. It's for me, it's much more productive. It's much more fulfilling, both from myself as a planner, but also I'm sure from the client's perspective, it's much more fulfilling for them to be working with somebody who they know have got their financial plan in mind and are then making suitable recommendations to further that financial plan, and not the other way around, not starting with some sort of product solution in mind.
Yeah. And something actually, a phrase that you use, actually, they've got the hand on the lever as well, haven't they? You're kind of both doing it together after discussion of which lever to pull and how hard to pull it. That's
it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Really interesting. Really interesting. So would it be fair to say that you think taking the CFP it's changed, it sounds like it's changed fundamentally your approach to giving advice to your clients and the way that you have engaged with the financial planning community at large?
It has, 100%. It's made me more confident about doing financial planning, which is the thing that once I discovered existed, is the thing I wanted to do. So now the CFP, it's given me, as I said, the tools. It's given me the mental model from which to operate to deliver this thing called financial planning. Whereas before I felt that I had the technical components that fall within that universe, but I didn't have the actual financial planning mental model to work within, to operate within and deliver this thing called financial planning to clients. Yeah. So for me, that was huge. And then that in and of itself brings a confidence that I don't need to know all of the technical answers that the client is seeking day one. And I also don't need to know all of the technical answers within a professional setting when I'm sitting with colleagues or professional colleagues at a seminar or at a conference. But what I do know is that I can bring that technical knowledge that I have, and I know where to seek the technical knowledge I don't have and bring it into that operating framework that is doing financial planning and deliver the client into the life that they want to live.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And has it actually that explanation, that conversation with the client about, since gaining your CFP and going through that training, has it changed the actual conversations that you have with clients right at the start when they say, perhaps if you get a new client or a prospective client, has your approach changed right at the very kind of first engagement time with those clients?
Absolutely. I think it has changed not only from the point of view of the first time I meet them, even the first phone call has changed. Even the first email reply to a client who comes through our website seeking to meet with us or talk with us for the first time, even the way I reply to them on that first email has changed. Because from day dot, from that first engagement with that prospective client, I'm already suggesting they think about this as something much bigger than what they've come to us with.
Yeah.
Because as you know, Jackie, normally there are events that prompt people to contact the financial planner, unless it's a referral from a friend and they've had this dinner party conversation. They think, yeah, I'll definitely want to go see your firm or your guy or your girl, whatever it is. But apart from that, there's an event, right? Either they get a tax bill that is a lot bigger than they expected, or they realize they've been over contributing to a pension at work. And HR has now sent a letter saying, look, we've capped everybody's pensions to X now because of your earnings. Yep. Or somebody unfortunately passes away. And there's an inheritance, or one of the spouses that we're dealing with, unfortunately passes away early and unexpectedly. And the other spouse is going, what do I do? Or there's a divorce. There's always something.
Yes.
And it was just too easy without this CFP operating framework. For me, it was just too easy to get a call like that and be straight to the point of answering whatever that query was. Whereas now I've got this operating framework, I've got this financial planning operating framework that when somebody hits me with a specific question, the thing that prompted them to contact us, we can, with empathy, hear them out and then gently ask them to take a step back and just to think about what would actually be a great outcome for them in working with a financial planner. How would it feel to have a financial life that they felt in control of?
Yeah.
And suddenly the conversation just changes. Because they were expecting you to talk to them about that particular technicality of pension lifetime allowance or whatever it is, and you haven't. You're saying, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there together. But let's just first take a step back. Let's understand what it would feel like if you were in control of this. Describe to me, how would you be thinking, operating? How would you be living your life if that was the case? And suddenly, that gives you the permission to then ask them questions about their lifestyle, about how they want to live today, how they aspire to live in the future, about some of their concerns, some of their dreams. And when they give you that information, you as a financial planner feel empowered to put that in this CFP operating system and come out with a thing called the financial plan that is basically the illustration of the life they have today and the life they want to have in the future alongside their numbers. And it merges those two together.
Yeah.
So it's just completely changed the way I deal with people in my profession, because we're suddenly dealing with them as their financial planner in a holistic sense of the word, not as the guy who solves a pensions technical query or the guy who implements a pension sharing order or whatever it is.
Yeah. That's powerful stuff, isn't it? That's very powerful stuff. Powerful for you, as an individual, as well as a financial professional, but also very powerful and, empowering for the clients themselves with that, that hand on the lever, isn't it?
That's it. And, Jackie, one of the things that made me seek this was part and parcel of that, exposing myself to the CFP community, sending emails to CFPs, asking them if I could spend 10 minutes on the phone, just understanding what it was like, what they gained from it. If this is something that was worth at the time me pursuing, because, we all appreciate it takes time out of our lives, out of our family lives, out of our social lives. And I just wanted to expose myself to the people within the CFP community that I was aware of through the financial press or through referrals from people in the financial press, just to hear back from them what it is that they found by doing this, by investing the time and the money in doing this. Because was that the thing I was seeking? And it was. And part of it was that. Part of it was, how do clients then talk about you after you do this?
Yeah.
And clients talk about you in a completely different way, in a way that is not a commodity. It's not something that you can just go online, press a button, and it's done. Yeah. And I think that's immensely valuable.
And I think the CFPs, all of us, everybody listening is probably thinking, yes, Jackie, but we do feel like we are a welcoming community, that we want to share the highs and lows of the things that have happened to us over the years, to help other financial professionals, to help other CFPs in the future to give better advice. And it's great that you're actually doing that yourself now as well, aren't you? Helping Absolutely. Other CFPs and prospective CFPs as people that you come across, in your world of work as well.
Yeah, well, look, we all have only a limited amount of time, of course, but think about each of us as one small little component within this pretty big and growing community of people that are championing financial planning as a profession in the UK. And look, I'm only standing on the shoulders of folks like you, Jackie, and all of the CFP community they're long in the tooth. They've been around, they've been championing this for ages. So I'm only doing my bit but from a very comfortable place of standing on the shoulders of people that have done the groundwork, right? And I'm only too conscious of that. But nonetheless, I'm only too happy to serve and to be a spokesman in whatever capacity that is offered to me, to put the word out there for the financial planning community. If you're in that community, you're aspiring to get into this community, into this profession, really check out the CFP qualification. It will be your aha moment, like everybody says it is. Yeah. And look, if you're concerned about anything, or if you just have questions that you would like to ask somebody, not necessarily directly to the CISI, just touch base with me or with anybody else that has the CFP marks after their name. I would doubt it. It would really surprise me if anybody said, sorry, so-and-so, I have no time for this now. If they did, they'll probably give you a really good reason and probably direct you to a couple of other CFPs who could help. And that would be very genuine. But I doubt that would happen, because we're keen for people to know about this and understand what it is, and to put themselves forward, get through the CFP process themselves, and get these tools to deliver people into this sense of financial freedom in their own communities, in their own towns, all around the country.
And I can say from personal experience that in the last 20 something years that I've been calling CFPs for a favour. I've never been turned away either. So I think that's a great message to get out. So let's just, before we wrap up, let's just hear about some of your top tips. If you've got... Some of our people listening now will be thinking, well, maybe I should give the CFP a go. I've heard it, it's been a monumental mountain for some people to climb. Things seem to be improving now with the new structure of the CFP, more courses available, more online help available. But what would be your top tips for people who are kind of on the fence, apart from just get off and do it, but anything extra to encourage people to undertake the CFP process in order to be able to gain that designation?
Yeah. So look, the first thing I would suggest people do is this. If they don't know this already, contact the CISI, tell them what qualifications you have, and ask them what is the pathway for you to get to from where you are to becoming a CFP professional, right? Just get that down pat so that you know, what I need to do is this exam and then this case study, and then I'm done, right? So you feel confident about the pathway. Once you've figured that out, then get yourself booked in. Definitely get yourself booked in. And if you're at the point where all you need is to submit, is to go through the case study process, then get yourself booked in. There'll be a case study submission about to start in November, I believe. So yes. Get yourself in for that one and give it a go yourself, right? Read the case study, get a marker out and mark out the bits that you find within that case study are quote unquote goals, quote unquote things that these fictitious clients want to try to achieve. Open up your own internal firm's cash flow planning software, or if you don't use one of those, or if you do but still fancy Excel, open up Excel and just figure out the compounding that would be needed, the contributions that would be needed, the protection that would be needed. Just play around with that on your own for a second, see how you feel about it. And then, in my humble opinion, get yourself signed up to one of the coaching programs that are out there. And I know, Jackie, that you have your own CFP coaching program as well. Get yourself signed up to one of the CFP coaching programs out there. And I mean that not because I don't think that the CISI, through its internal resources, can't help you. I mean that because it will give you a chance to be exposed to somebody who is an experienced CFP professional, typically, or at least experienced in the CFP process, experienced enough to teach it, and to the other folks that will be signing up to that group with you. And it will give you a little mini community, a little mini bubble of people to go through this process together, to share ideas, share thoughts. Look, at the end of the day, no two financial planning case study submissions are going to be the same. No. Because you can solve somebody's financial planning problems in different ways, and that those different ways are still completely valid. So, but having that community to be able to bounce ideas off, challenge yourself, really get to understand the things that perhaps you're weaker on, and also share the things that you think you understand better than others, I think that already gives you a group of people that will no doubt become lifelong friends within the financial planning profession, and more specifically within the CFP community at large.
Yeah. And get off that fence.
Get off that fence. Look, financial planning is a profession within the financial services sector. That's how I see it. And the way I see it is that the financial services sector is gradually being commoditized. A lot of the financial services sector is becoming an algorithm, right? And the more you boil down into the things that are harder to commoditize, the things that people value most from a human, the more you'll find that the financial planning profession is it. Now, once you get to this conclusion, you then look back out and think, okay, how is it that I can equip myself with the right tools to do this thing called financial planning that I keep hearing about? And I promise you, doing the CFP is going to be one of the most important things in getting you to feel confident about the fact that you've got the tools to be able to either set up a firm yourself, change your current firm, or join a firm of CFPs and actually do this thing called financial planning for people.
Yeah. Powerful stuff, isn't it? Powerful stuff.
Huge.
So I'd just like to say thank you again for joining me today, Amyr. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and to hear all about your journey through to CFP. I'm sure our listeners will be absolutely fascinated and probably picking up the phone to you as we speak. So thanks again, and thanks for joining me.
No worries. My pleasure, Jackie. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate the invitation.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's quite interesting to listen to the different views and discussions with different people, isn't it? Join me next time when we'll be discussing all things certified financial planner related and catching up with those new to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.